Just days after some parts of the country were battered by Storm Isha, it seems we're not out of the woods yet as Storm Jocelyn rolls in. The Met Office has issued more amber and yellow warnings and says some places should expect 80-mile-an-hour winds. Jocelyn's the 10th storm to hit Britain in just 5 months. So are we to expect more travel chaos and even more flooding? Joining us live from Aberdeenshire in Scotland is our reporter Davy Shanks. Nice to see you, Davy, and live from London Waterloo Station, independent travel editor Simon Calder. Good to have you both on board. Let's start with you, Davy. How is it looking? Describe last night, describe today, and tell me what might be in store later on.
Well, getting ready for one of these hits where we're going to get out in the storm and talk about the bad weather. I was preparing well because it was raining. I've got my plastic bag, a sandwich bag over my light, over my camera, getting ready to come out here. And it seems to be, for now, quite mild, quite still. There's even, you might not be able to see it because of my light, but a glimmer of blue in the background. But don't let that deceive you. If you were to look at the satellite image, you would see the massive shape of Storm Jocelyn moving ever eastward. To quote the National Bard ahead of Burns Day, nursing her wrath as she heads towards us. We are all underneath, most of the country, underneath a yellow weather warning for wind. We've seen gusts in Paris of more than 70 miles an hour already. There is that amber weather warning coming into force for wind across the very far north of Scotland, down the west coast and the Western Isles as well, which could pose a danger to life from debris, from high seas as well. If you're near the coast, it can get incredibly dangerous too. We could see up to 5 centimetres of rain in some places as well, and those heavy gusts. I'm sure, as Simon will tell you, incredible disruption also expected and planned for already across roads and rails and transport links across the country.
I just want to say, Davy, that since you've been joining me on the programme, I've heard from many of your fans on social media, and they tell me that, unbeknownst to me, I had no idea, you are a singer of considerable renown. Now, I'm not going to spring it on you and get you to sing us Singing in the Rain right now, but are they telling me the truth? Is it true? Because if it is, you're going to have to sing for us one day on the show.
Well, if it was raining, Vanessa, maybe, but it is very, very dry here in the northeast, thankfully. So maybe I'll keep the tunes to myself.
Not for long, you know I'm going to insist upon it. Let me bring Simon Calder into the fray. Simon, I mean, it was only, 2 days ago that you were on the show discussing travel disruption of all different kinds. Tell me what's going on now as storm seems to follow storm with this almost sickening regularity.
Yes, and I'm actually, good evening, Vanessa, good evening, Davy, hearing from an awful lot of cheesed-off people in Scotland to conjure up the name of Tony Joe White's legendary railroad song, The Train I'm On, which I'd love to hear Davy sing sometime. If you're on a train in Scotland, you're doing pretty well. There aren't going to be any departures after 7 p.m. today. A couple of Anglo-Scottish train companies, and we're talking here about Avanti West Coast and Transpennine Express, basically said, don't even think about trying to travel north after about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're not going to be back until Wednesday afternoon because of the all the forecasts there. Scotland's entire railway will be shutting down. Trains which set off before 7 will get to their destination, but with restricted speed. And for the second time in 3 days, you will have no rush hour trains in Scotland in the morning, which is obviously going to cause an awful lot of havoc. And some railway people I've been speaking to, as well as cheesed-off passengers, say that perhaps that's something of an overreaction. Of course, ScotRail, Network Rail in Scotland, say they are doing this out of an abundance of caution. But it is going to be very difficult there. Any of you are thinking, oh, catch the ferry. Well, good luck with that. We've got massive problems right across the Western Isles, Caledonian, McBrain ferries, many route cancellations, and that will continue into the morning.
And what's the story with flights taking off or not able to?
Well, OK, you will remember, because we've talked about it, the astonishing diversions we saw on Sunday night. That was when, of course, we had a Storm Isha, if anybody can remember her, coming in over England and really causing massive disruption in an awful lot of UK airports, to the extent that you have flights from Manchester to Dublin and from Edinburgh to Bristol going to France because they couldn't divert anywhere else. We're not there yet. At Heathrow, I'm still only seeing about 10 cancellations in and out today. That's to reduce the so-called flow rate so that planes can have a bit more space between them when they're landing. We've got cancellations in Edinburgh, as you perhaps would expect, mostly kind of domestic Scottish flights, if you like, but also British Airways has cancelled a couple of evening flights to Edinburgh and to Glasgow, presumably because they know they're not going to be flying back in the morning, and we'll have to sort of wake up and see how things are looking. In general, it's going to be a little bit bumpy if you're flying tonight, of course, but it's not going to be quite on the same scale of tens of thousands of people waking up where they didn't expect to be, which is what we saw, crikey, was it only Monday morning after Storm Isha.
Gosh, thank you both very much indeed. And Davy, you know you've got to practice la, la. That's what we want, some of that from you. I'm not joking. Not a threat, just something I'm looking forward to. Looking forward to it. Thank you both very much indeed.